Revelation 2781. From the 20th of June 1943. God as a teacher. Knowledge power. A wise person is one who constantly allows himself to be taught by God, who therefore makes use of his strength, which his love and grace constantly wants to supply to people. For anyone who receives a gift from God cannot remain in his degree of maturity, he must develop upwards, he must become knowledgeable if wisdom is offered to him by God himself. Having God as a teacher guarantees deepest knowledge and purest truth. And God will be the teacher of the one who wants to be instructed by him, for the will alone is decisive as to which forces try to transfer their thought material to people. Every instruction, no matter how seemingly unimportant, supplements the human being's knowledge as soon as divine strength supplies it to him, and divine strength is always at work when the recipient opens himself to this strength, when he desires the truth and strives towards God. It is a misguided thought that God-opposing forces can also convey spiritual gifts to earth if these forces are not obviously granted access through a completely God-opposing way of life. For God-opposing forces will always want to deny the eternal deity, they will only want to enlighten people in earthly matters, and that too in a way which would soon reveal their ignorance. But as soon as spiritual questions are asked they are incapable of expressing themselves, and it is immediately recognizable to the truth-seeking person when his fellow human being falls under the influence of those forces. But the truth-seeking human being can leave himself unperturbed to the mental influences from above, he will always be guided right. The power of the knowing beings in the beyond is so great that they can keep all bad forces away from the human being. They watch over the truth and the charges entrusted to them as soon as their desire is directed towards being taught by God himself. And they increase in wisdom and strength of faith, for anyone who is knowledgeable will also be able to believe firmly and unshakably, because he receives the power of realization at the same time as knowledge, which also allows him to accept knowledge as pure truth. To be taught by God is also the only path to truth, for even if the truth is conveyed to him by fellow human beings, the human being has to ask God for enlightenment, for illumination of the spirit, so that he will recognize it as truth. And then he will have been taught by God. He will have appealed to him for his help, and God, as the eternal truth, will guide him into knowledge, regardless of which mediator he uses for this. And that is what people mostly fail to do, that they ask God for enlightenment of their thinking. They research and ponder and believe that they can absorb the wisdom intellectually, they try to acquire the knowledge through books and writings, and it can all be dead goods and therefore not result in knowledge for them if they absorb it without first having requested God's help. People must turn to God, who is truth himself, if they want to receive the truth and also recognize it as such. God himself must not be ignored, the strength of the Spirit must be requested from him. Otherwise the Spirit cannot become effective in the human being and the human being's thinking will only remain intellectual thinking. But the human being who strives towards God will not do anything without having appealed for his support, and if he then commends himself to God's grace with faithful confidence his thinking will be enlightened, he will recognize the truth as such. He will be convinced of it and also advocate it to his fellow human beings. He will be able to represent the truth because he has penetrated the knowledge which is imparted to him by God's love, because he desired to be taught by him. Amen.